Even if it's challenging enough to solve crimes today, some cases were virtually unsolvable decades ago owing to scientific, technological, and evidential restrictions. However, tremendous progress has been made, and during the past year, instances from the 1950s have been resolved. From a woman finding her family decades later to the identification of Boy in the Box, as they call him, we've brought to you 3 of the most intriguing cold cases that have been solved in 2022. Welcome to Bizarre Cases. I'm Joel, and today we're exploring 3 cold cases that have been solved in the last year. Without further ado, let's walk onto the edge of the unknown. Brittanee Drexel. In April 2009, Brittanee Drexel told her mom she would be spending a few days at a friend's house in Rochester, New York. Unbeknownst to Drexel, her 17-year-old daughter was, in fact, over 800 miles away on a spring break trip in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, without her permission.
And I told her, I said, "No, Brittany." She goes, "Why? Nothing's going to happen to me, Mom." I said, "Brittany, there's no parental supervision. I don't know these kids you're going with." And I said, "Something's going to happen."
In an exclusive interview, Dawn Drexel told 2020 that she didn't want her daughter going on a trip unsupervised. "I said, there's no parental supervision, and I said, something is going to happen to you," Drexel said. Brittanee was last seen leaving a Myrtle Beach hotel lobby and was never seen again. Drexel searched tirelessly for Brittanee, desperate to know what had happened to her daughter. Dawn Drexel said she didn't know about her daughter's whereabouts until she heard from her daughter's boyfriend, John, a few days later. John did not travel with Brittanee Drexel to Myrtle Beach, but kept in constant contact with her, text messaging his girlfriend during her trip until their text message exchanges abruptly stopped on April 25th, according to Drexel. The police, however, identified a person named Raymond Moody through the local sex offender registry. Moody had also been pulled over for a traffic violation near Myrtle Beach the day after Brittanee Drexel vanished. Though the search of the motel produced no evidence that could connect Moody to Brittanee Drexel, details from the pullover provided clues. At the time of that traffic stop, Moody had scratches on his face, according to Chuck Capp, a retired Myrtle Beach police lieutenant who was involved in the investigation. In an exclusive interview with 2020, Ernest Merchant, a former romantic partner of Raymond Moody, says a couple of days after Brittanee Drexel had gone missing, Moody showed up at his home unexpectedly. "I saw that his face had claw marks all over it," said Merchant. "His neck, cheeks, he had a shaved bald head. His head was just clawed," added Merchant, recalling his encounter with Moody. But the police would not fully understand the connection until years later. Brittanee Drexel's family said authorities told them that investigators had obtained new evidence via enhanced surveillance video and cell phone data. The video captured the car Moody was allegedly driving the night of Brittanee Drexel's disappearance. In Drexel's mind, her daughter, who did not like walking, might have been hoping for a ride back to her hotel the night she vanished. 3 sad years passed by with little clue as to what happened to Brittanee. However, in 2012, Raymond Moody was first identified by Myrtle Beach police as a person of interest after authorities searched a Georgetown motel room he had stayed in around the time Brittanee disappeared. Georgetown County Sheriff's Office Detective Philip Hanna told WMBF News at the time that Moody was also a person of interest in a 2005 missing person case, and he was not cooperating with either investigation. While the law enforcement didn't find any evidence, they had a face-to-face conversation with Moody, who agreed to come in and have a sit-down conversation with law enforcement. Slowly, Moody began to confess as to what happened on April 25, 2009. The last year, however, some 13 years later, Moody confessed to his crime and entered a guilty plea. Moody said that he and his girlfriend, Angel Voss, had driven up to Myrtle Beach to party when they saw Drexel walking down the street and asked if she wanted to party and smoke marijuana. According to Moody, Drexel voluntarily got into the vehicle and he didn't attempt to hurt her in Horry County. Moody said the three ended up at a campsite that Moody had in Georgetown County, where Moody admitted that he hoped during the course of the night that there would be consensual sex with Drexel. At some point in the night, Voss left the campsite to attend a family member. That's when Moody came to Drexel, and she resisted his sexual advances, according to Moody. He told law enforcement that's when he essentially kidnapped her and sexually assaulted her. Moody said once he realized what he had done, he realized he was going to go to prison. That's when Moody thought it would be a better escape if he killed Drexel, and then he strangled her to death. He said he put her in a blanket and moved her to some bushes in the area. Moody said Voss returned to the area and asked where Drexel was, and Moody said that friends came to pick her up. At some point in the night, Moody ended up taking Drexel's remains, went up Pennyroyal Road and took her to an area where he buried her, according to Moody. Between May 11th and 12th, authorities found some remains in the Harmony Township area where Moody said they would be, and dental records and DNA analysis confirmed it was Drexel. Then, finally, once the state rested, Moody made a quick statement where he apologized for what he did to Brittanee Drexel. "I was a monster. I was a monster then, and I was a monster when I took Brittanee Drexel's life," Moody said. "I don't have the words to express how horrible I feel. I'm very sorry." After all the statements were made, the judge sentenced Moody to life in prison for the murder, kidnapping, and rape of Drexel. Melissa Highsmith. One of the nation's longest missing person cases was that of Melissa Highsmith. Thanks to a DNA test that connected her with her long-lost family, her life was changed forever. On August 23, 1971, Alta Apenteco had advertised for a babysitter. Later, Ruth Johnson, the babysitter, called. She informed Apenteco that she had a sizable backyard and also looked after other kids. Can she keep an eye on Melissa there? Apenteco agreed, desperate for childcare so she could keep her job. The woman went to her apartment and picked up Melissa from Apenteco's roommate while she was at work. Ruth was being described as being well-dressed and sporting white gloves. Little Melissa was never picked up by Johnson that evening, and he was unreachable. The FBI and Fort Worth police became involved shortly after, but more than 50 years later, very few clues had emerged. At the time, police stated they had found no evidence Melissa had been hurt and hoped Johnson or whoever was caring for the child was doing a good job. For decades afterwards, the family kept searching for Melissa. To keep Melissa in the spotlight, they conducted podcast and press interviews. They responded on a Websluts forum created just for the case. When they believed they had a lead, they hurried to other states. However, to no avail. The 23andMe findings for Jeffrey Highsmith were then made public in November 2022. Unknown to him, he had matched with a grandchild. Del Bosque then noticed that the grandchild shared a last name with two boys who might be her nephews when she went to her account on the genealogical website Ancestry.com. The sisters sent Lisa Jo Scheel the DNA findings, and she utilized graphs of the percentage of DNA shared by various types of relatives to determine that the three children belonged to one of the women's siblings. It has been difficult for Melissa's family to locate her because she had been going by the name Melanie. However, Scheel made contact with the children's adoptive father, who recalled Melissa's first name and the complete name of her ex-husband. The sisters used that information to locate a marriage record, which directed them to Melissa's Facebook page. Her message was sent by them. At first, Melissa didn't think the Highsmiths were her relatives. Then, they brought up Melissa's birthmark on her back, and she consented to a DNA test. So, in an emotional reunion that took place at a lab in Fort Worth where Melissa had spent the majority of her life, Jeffrey Highsmith and Apenteco reconnected with their daughter on Saturday after more than 50 years apart. They went out to lunch after undergoing the DNA testing that would officially prove their relationship. Melissa's life was difficult without her native family. She left home at the age of 15 and, according to her sisters, had a tense relationship with the women who raised her. When questioned recently, the woman acknowledged being aware that Melissa was the kidnapped victim. Despite spending the majority of her childhood as Melanie, Melissa now prefers to go by her real name, according to her sisters. She immediately connected with their mother and wants to spend more time with her. Her sisters also said that she wanted to remarry her present husband so that her father could lead her down the aisle. Boy in the box. In the Ivy Hill Cemetery in Cedar Brook, Philadelphia, there is a headstone that reads, "America's Unknown Child." It's a permanent reminder of the child who lies beneath it, a boy who was found beaten to death in a box some 65 years ago. Since then, he's been called the Boy in the Box. For the next 6 decades after his body was discovered, detectives pursued thousands of leads in order to identify the boy in the box. And they started with the boy himself. An investigation of his body revealed that his sandy hair has been recently and crudely cut. WFTV-9 reports that clumps of hair were still on his body, leading some to believe that his killer had tried to disguise his identity. Investigators also found scars on his ankle, foot and groin that appeared to be surgical, and his feet and right hand were pruny, suggesting he'd been in water. On December 8, 2022, Philadelphia Police Department Commissioner Danielle Outlaw announced a breakthrough in the case. The boy found dead in 1957, she said, was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. This child's story was always remembered by the community, she said. His story was never forgotten. As Outlaw and others explained during a police press conference, Zarelli was identified thanks to genetic genealogy. His DNA was uploaded to genetic databases, which led detectives to relatives on his mother's side. After poring through birth records, they were also able to identify his father. They also learned that Zarelli's mother had 3 other children. The investigators found that Joseph Augustus Zarelli was born on Jan 13, 1953, which meant that he was 4 years old when his body was found. Aside from that, however, the detectives were tight-lipped. They explained that numerous questions still remain about Zarelli's life and death. For now, the police are not releasing the names of Zarelli's parents out of respect for his living siblings. They also refused to speculate on who killed Zarelli, though they noted, "We have our suspicions." This is still an active homicide investigation, and we still need the public's help in filling in this child's story, Outlaw said. This announcement only closes one chapter in this little boy's story while opening up a new one. What are your thoughts on this video? Do you agree that the victims received justice too late and that it should have come to them sooner? Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Do let us know in the comments if you want us to cover some other cases on our channel. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked our efforts in the research of this video and found it intriguing enough, please make sure to like, share and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss out on our content whenever it's uploaded. See you all in the next video.